Welcome to Thugcrowd Radio. Please listen to this important disclaimer in its entirety. All participants of this Thugcrowd Radio episode are characters. None of the stories told during these episodes are based on facts, truth, or reality. All works of fiction displayed during this episode that resemble real-life situations are coincidental and are not meant to serve as guides or tutorials to commit any crimes in any country. Please consult an attorney for local laws and regulations. And as always, trust your inner criminal.
Hey everybody.
Howdy.
How y'all doing? Welcome to Thugcrowd episode 25.
Doing good.
Oh yeah. Speaking of episode 25, I went through all the audio this weekend, and I compressed it and made it leveled and painstakingly cut out some of the awkward silences that we might have that would make it really unlistenable for somebody who is listening to just the audio, or unlistenable in general. But yeah, we actually have 35 episodes. We did the numbering scheme as like a 0.5 for like the Sunday streams that we did. And yeah, we have over 70 hours of content.
Damn.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah,
Doing that. That's a lot of shit task.
it's a lot of memes and a lot of just audio shit posting. But yeah, it's pretty sweet. But yeah, I have the link on the screen there. It's thugcrowd.com/archive.html. Actually, let me double check if that's actually the link. Yeah, okay, it is. But yeah, I put it so we have all of our audio. You can download all the audio and all the Twitch, YouTube streams, as well as show notes for each episode in a nice little table there. We're trying to get the actual audio onto all the different platforms like iTunes and stuff. And luckily, we have Patrick Gray from Risky Business giving us some of his tools that he uses to actually distribute stuff. So it'll be nice and professional for those of you who like to listen on the go.
Oh, nice.
He's helped us out with that. But yeah, we did it though. We listened to a lot of audio. It was awesome to hear. It's awesome to see though. We have grown quite a lot since the first episode. Have a lot of the same faces and then a lot of new faces, and it's pretty cool. So, yeah. Yeah, so thanks everybody for joining us tonight. We have Georgia Weidman, who is the author of Penetration Testing, a hands-on guide to hacking, which is like if you have taken the OSCP or taken any other sort of certifications where you need to be practical, or if you just wanted to learn pen testing in general, it's probably something that has crossed your path at some point. It's kind of like a little Bible of the process of how you actually do pen testing in the real world. And I'm really grateful that she actually wanted to come on and talk to us, because she has a lot of really cool information in general, being a pen tester, an author, and starting her own business and everything too. So I have a ton of questions. But yeah, I linked the show notes. You can probably see them still on the screen there. I'll link them one more time just in case people are just joining us now. But yeah, just follow along with us. The first story of the day, though, I kind of want to get into with you, Shell, is the thing that you found, was it yesterday?
Oh, yeah. It's something I've been sitting on for a little bit. I was just doing some recon, so I really enjoy recon. And turns out that if you go, there's a giant scans.io database you can download, and it's like 300 gigs, 30 gigs, or some crazy amount of fucking text.
Yeah.
And so I downloaded this giant flat file and then put it into like a little flat file database and ran through it in Go. So
Mhm.
that was figures a good project to learn Go with, because Go did it quicker than anything else that I tried. For just like parsing out through flat files, and there's all sorts of ways to do it. I'm just playing around with a lot of stuff like that for a few different projects. But anyway, so it's just every like A record, every C name record that Rapid7 has ever seen. And so it's really good for doing, subdomain takeovers and whatnot. But if you look at the ones for Tumblr, like abandoned domains, like if someone deleted a blog or like changed their URL or what have you, and the CNAME record's still there, you could just swoop in on it. And so I got a list of all of those and just threw it out there on Twitter. There's like over 8,500 of them. And some of them were real funny and made for a good time. Figured I'd share and let other people in on the shenanigans.
Hell yeah. So yeah, no, it was pretty cool, the amount of domains that you found. A lot of them are interesting. There's a lot of mail servers, which I was kind of puzzled about.
Yeah. I don't know if people were just like, I don't know what that was. There was a lot of mail dot, and I don't know why. Doesn't make sense to me, but I
Yeah,
guess we'll see.
I'm kind of curious as to how, like, I definitely do some testing on it, but seeing, something that's routed through Tumblr, but it's not an MX record, or unless it is somewhere in DNS, I don't know, but it's weird.
Was this maybe in the past, maybe not a Tumblr, but they had like an acquisition of some blogging platform or something that had vanity mail domains?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been. Like I said, I stripped out all of the other information that was there and just left it as just the domains. So it could be some crazy stuff. There's also like some false positives in there, like, which is weird because there's some that 404, but also when you try to claim them, they say they're already taken.
Yeah.
So there's a few things, like a few weird things about it, but for the most part, it's just all kind of funny stuff.
Yeah, definitely a lot of interesting URLs on there. Yeah.
It sort of reminds me of when Google started. So do you guys remember when G Suite came out, or it wasn't called G Suite at the time? Google for Apps for Business, maybe it was called.
I remember when it came out.
So when it came out, it was actually free. So you could just register your domain, right? And you'd get like originally it might have been 50 accounts, and then they dropped to 10 or something. I can't remember. There was a lot of accounts and they were free. So people registered their domains and they were using Gmail for business. Now what happened was Google decided that everyone had to upgrade to like a business type account. And you click on the upgrade button, and the only thing that changed is now you pay for the service, but it doesn't actually. There's no new features or anything, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of domains were lapsing. So at one point, a friend and I scraped a bunch of expiring domains, and then we checked the MX records to see if they were Google domains, and then purchased a bunch of domains for like expiring domains that are like maybe probably used by spammers, like xzy2357.in or something, and bought those and then recovered the Google Apps for Business accounts. So the result was we ended up with like grandfathered accounts, so that we never have to pay for like G Suite basically, because you can put extra aliases like onto those accounts, extra domain aliases. So like this whole expiring domains, changing domains, taking over like these tumblers, there might be a nice follow-on effect. It's possible that if you mentioned there was mail servers there, like if the MX records are set to Google and somebody has like let something lapse, then it might be a good chance to snap up some of those grandfathered accounts as well.
There's definitely some value in just snatching up stale MX records and sucking every possible mail that ever comes to that any address on that domain you control.
Yeah.
If you get one valid account recovery or something out of it, it will pay for the cost of registering the domain. So I can imagine that a nation state, well, somebody with those resources and time, get a lot of value out of just hoovering up fuckloads of expired and stale domains.
Those mail subdomains may have just been like wildcard CNAMEs, but they showed up on the Rapid 7 list because mail is something that they checked for.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, no, pretty cool. We should get into some of our news here because we kind of have a bit of it, and we have some extra stories too. So the first story that we have on our show notes here is pretty good. We've seen it on Twitter, seen it unfold. Bit5 finally gives up the claim that their cryptocurrency wallet is unhackable. This is pretty funny. We've seen what happened. If you guys haven't followed the story so far, basically, John McAfee's company. I'm not sure if he's not the owner of it, but he's involved in the company.
He's the president of the board, I think.
Yeah, he's some sort of high level.
His main role was around marketing, though. Let's not forget that. Like, as much as McAfee shit, I love McAfee. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, the thing is regardless of what you think of it, means obviously a smart guy, but he put out the claim that their wallet was unhackable, and they said that basically that they had fortress-like security that could not be hacked or penetrated by any outside attacks. And so obviously, when you challenge InfoSec Twitter to can you hack this thing, you always are going to lose. Basically we saw people running Doom on it, saw people rooting the actual device, the Android device on the wallet, and then people, there's so many exploits. This is pretty awesome, actually. If you look at Cyber Gibbons' Twitter, you definitely will see the whole story unfold. But yeah, so they had to take that out of their they had to do an announcement on Twitter saying that they are going to remove the unhackable claim from their marketing. And I don't know what they're going to do about those bug bounties that they had put out, because they basically had way too narrow of a scope, I think, and they kept kind of moving the goalpost quite a bit. And
the latest on this is McAfee's offering $20 million to hack his wallet, his Bitfy wallet.
Yeah.
And so people have responded, all right, bring your stupid wallet to 44Con. Let's see how we go. He won't do that, but this is amazing publicity. I mean, he's doing really well to ramp this up.
As far as marketing goes, he definitely
does.
On the head.
Yeah. So I haven't followed this closely enough. Is he not actually acknowledging the client side vulnerability or whatever that cyber supposed to do?
It's basically he's not going to eat his own dick, for one. But so what he said is basically that they've got these wallets, and these wallets, as we've seen, shitty Android phones. They've been sent out to, there's just components missing off them. They've got a custom firmware. They've been sent out to users, and when you purchase the device to hack, they preload it with $10. Now, when they by preloading, that's like a wallet that isn't actually stored on the device. You need to use a deterministic, so you use the equivalent of BIP39, I guess, which is using
right. So they own your Bitcoin wallet from that point forwards. If you use their free wallet that comes with a phone, they can then later recover any funds that you put into any deterministically generated wallet from that seed wallet, right?
Right, exactly. So you have to put the passphrase in order to get access to the coin. So they're saying you can't get the $10 out of the wallet, right? That's their claim, which is true. You can't get the $10 out until somebody accesses, their wallet that you've already backdoored. So supply chain attacks, messing with something, evil maid attacks, all this kind of stuff. There's guys who've written, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Cyber Gibbons, but it was somebody who was working with, where he wrote a tool to scan memory for what looked like the pass, I think it was the passphrase or the seed, I can't remember. And then he had Cyber Gibbons unlock his wallet, and in which case, in that scenario, he stole the money. So that did happen, and this was a few weeks ago as well. So it's the definition of unhackable that they've been claiming this whole time.
Well, yeah. But I mean, then the cold boot attack came out and all that stuff too. So.
Yeah. Yes. So this, I just going through the news on this, and I can see they finally give up and said, okay, we're going to take the word unhackable out of our marketing material. The fact that these guys are playing in an unregulated space like crypto is the only reason they can put a product out with the word unhackable on it. Like any other marketplace, if you were to put a device in like local computer store that said unhackable on the box, they'd be sued to oblivion. They're not allowed to do that. There's like criteria and claims testing and all that kind of bullshit. The only reason they can do that in this space is because there isn't government oversight saying, hang on, you can't say unhackable. Like, you got to back that up. Unhackable by who? Tested by who? According to which standard? In the crypto world, you could just snake oil your way to millions of dollars. Clearly, McAfee's proving it. So, yeah,
they already fouled up. They already filed up with the FCC because they didn't have any identification on it. They kind of stopped talking about that after it was mentioned.
This is just crypto all over. Like right now, nobody's in control, nobody's in charge. You can just do whatever you like. And McAfee is doing what he likes, what he does best. This is how he got famous and rich in the first place. Yeah. In the wild world of antivirus, when there was no regulation, there were no rules, there was nothing. McAfee was just shitting out fake virus signatures to pad their virus database. Half the viruses in existence came from McAfee back then.
Yeah.
They were just adding it. They were just like tweaking a couple of bytes, changing an MD5 sum, and then adding a new signature to their database. Oh, we detect millions of viruses. There's millions of viruses out there. Yeah, 98% of them come from you guys.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think that McAfee's original, I think I said this on an earlier show, but McAfee's original quotes about the FBI versus Apple with, to unlock the iPhone, you need a hardware engineer and a software engineer. This is exactly what he was talking about. Except that situation was harder than hacking the Bitfire wallet when it comes to gaining root, recovering things from memory, doing that sort of stuff. Like, there was all kinds of interfaces on the Bitfire wallet. So I think McAfee was under absolutely zero illusion that this thing couldn't run Doom or have,
I think the only thing you need to do is point at previous tweets where, a year or two ago he's on television talking about how every mobile device in the world is owned and can be owned, and it's not possible to have a secure mobile device. Fast forward 2 years, he's pimping one.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it. That just cancels him out as an authority on the subject. It's very clear what he's doing, but the media are helping him along. Pretty scary.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he planned it. I think he knew what unhackable meant. I think he knew that people were going to blow up. Like, exactly. We're having this.
We saw it with Oracle 10, right? Unbreakable Oracle. That was they changed their trademark to Unbreakable Oracle.
Titanic, unsinkable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is now, but David Litchfield took that very personally, and then there was like 10 years of non-stop Oracle 0 days after that.
Hell yeah. The next thing that we have on our list here is also another funny, weird thing that kind of goes along with some other stuff that's come out recently. It's the remote code execution on packagist.org for basically the package server behind Composer for PHP. So somebody had found that you could basically just type $sign in parentheses, like whatever you want into this website for your repository URL, and it would just get executed on the shell.
Yeah, the write-up for this is pretty good as well. Like, it goes into, it wasn't very long, but basically it goes into Mercurial, like HG, where it gets executed on the command along with a bunch of that stuff. So it actually got executed twice, which is the double lols.
Yeah.
But the thing about this is, I find we've seen this with NPM and we've seen it with other package managers as well. But what I find is the most hilarious thing about this one is, being PHP, PHP's ecosystem is terrible. Like, it's always been a case of copy paste code, zip your WordPress site, send it to the other developer, copy paste trash into like from one file to another, and Composer comes along and Composer's like, hang on, wait guys, let's use semantic versioning. Let's use let's use repositories that are maintained. Let's have attribution to authors. Let's like have all this stuff, right? And so I thought, I've worked as a PHP dev where we used Composer because it is a good idea. Like the idea of Composer is a great idea. And then like lo and behold, the PHP like use system like comes back out again, like code execution comes right back out because the PHP mentality still hasn't changed. And now the package manager that is the solution to the problem becomes the problem. It's ironic.
It's just like if WordPress like bought GitHub and all their best security people were now like GitHub security people. Oh no.
Hell yeah.
That's not good.
Next one we got here too. I thought it was interesting because of how long this thing took. There was it San Benito County. Their government computers were taken offline for a week due to some. It doesn't tell you what malware it was because this is like a local paper that this is from. But yeah, this seems like a nightmare for them. They basically had to take a week of doing all of their. There's a county office of emergency services and some other public safety and public commission stuff. Basically, just taken offline, and they had to do everything on pen and paper until they were able to redeploy their whole network. It sucks. I feel bad when I hear about this kind of stuff because I know how slow these environments already are. So I can't imagine how much slower it would be if you had to do everything on pen and paper, like getting whatever office document passed inter-office, to just get to check on your status for like food stamps or something,
Yeah, it's a total nightmare. And like I've talked about before, my home county like got ransomware once, and they literally like just kept restoring like like a month-old backup. Like
yeah,
it's like week in and week out. While they're like trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And it was like the efficiency absolutely tanked. But
I feel like I feel like these IT guys that are running these systems, like, because so the town I'm from isn't very big either, and there was an IT role in the city council, and it wasn't paying a great deal. And someone I had known took it for a short period of time, and basically, like, this is going to be the case for every single like of this location. Like, this is a generic ass location, right? And nobody really cares or gets anything done. There's no security. What? Like, what's network security? Like, there's no. It's just like, run the AD server, make sure that the firewall is turned on if you have one, or like the ADSL router is turned on and you have NAT.
Yeah. No, I mean it's pretty. It's hard for them to be able to pay for that kind of stuff. I mean, I've worked in those kind of environments too, and just seeing the IT team doing very basic things that it takes them an entire day to do, especially with people when you're also working with people who aren't computer people at all, and you have to work with them as they are also handling like a lot of sensitive information and big systems that need to be maintained. You can't just play Farmville on your computer. So definitely sucks. I feel bad for these kind of people and wish that there's some way to like actually help like do real training for giving out real educational resources, as well as just providing some sort of general support for help for the small town people that they get targeted for ransomware all the time by like just I don't know, somebody who's like, you're not going to make that much money anyway from them. They're very small towns. Like, it just sucks. You put them all out of business.
There's not a lot of incentive though for those admins to do anything about it. Like, they don't prepare for the scenario because they just go to work every day in their gray shirt and their gray slacks, and they rock up on time and they go home, and then they go live their life out, and their day job is an IT admin. Who cares about malware? Like, we've got Norton installed. We've got McAfee installed. He's a famous internet man.
Well, sometimes it can't do anything about it because like government websites will enforce like like Java will upgrade, and then for a year some state government website that's absolutely necessary will be like, oh, you've got to use this older version of Java, and you have to use Internet Explorer, and you have to add us to the trusted sometimes you just can't get around it. Like,
you got to bend over and open your ports in order to use the software.
All right, so the next story we have here is interesting because somebody had posted something in Discord about this right after I put out the show notes. So somebody had changed the name of New York City to Jutropolis on a bunch of apps, and so this is like made into a big story. I mean, it's all over the place. But when I looked at what somebody had posted, I think it's from looks like an OG user or some stupid forum. Let me see if I can actually. I wonder if I can post the CDN link from Discord directly because I don't. I'm not going to put it up on the board here. But yeah. So it looks like this person here had just gone to OpenStreetMap.org, which is like basically you can edit stuff. You can edit the actual what's it called, map data, and it'll just get pushed down eventually because Snapchat and other like places that use this as their data source for when they do like Snapchat maps and stuff like that. And so yeah, basically like this information or whatever, this got pulled into like downstream and eventually pushed out to like Snapchat and other people's applications and stuck around there for a little bit because they have to wait for whatever the cycle is that they refresh. I guess this person probably timed it pretty well to be able to get this to actually push down.
Yeah, I mean, once you get like, if you read the post, because I didn't have to write one line of code, like
yeah,
like went on and it was like, oh yeah, this map change name, and like not a small thing either, but the name of actual New York City.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is though is that this is like it literally is like the Wikipedia of maps. Like you can put stuff on there because they want it to be collaborative, but there's no like it seems like there's no protected stuff there. Like there's no protected pages as Wikipedia would say.
Yeah, and not to mention like the other thing is right, like it's a little bit hard to do when someone has like a lot of legitimate name changes in the past, right? Or like changes in the past. So they're like a trusted user, quote unquote.
I think
for anyone to be able to do it,
yeah, I think John Tobias, one of the creators of Mortal Kombat, I think his Wikipedia says that he's the owner of the world's worst mustache. Like I know there's a whole bunch of people like we've edited it as well, that I won't name on stream, but just to add, you know, their occupation is not infosec, it's like chef or something silly. I mean, but I think the biggest thing, I think the reason why this hit the news, I guess, is, you know, Jutropolis is very offensive to obviously a lot of people who live in New York, and I just think it's probably like the biggest, you know, thing that why anyone cares. Like I don't know how many people like, is OpenStreetMap very popular, or like is it because
it's used by a lot of places like Zillow, City Bike, Snapchat. A lot of big companies use it as their like open source data source because they don't, you know, don't you have to do a license to do Google Maps? I forget if you do, or like an API integration.
Well, you need a license for Google Maps if it is behind a paid paywall. So if you have a paywall, then you need to pay like 10. I don't know, it was 10 grand or something stupid. But companies like TomTom and Garmin and Navman, like whatever, I'm sure they don't use this as their data source. So
yeah, I mean, you would see it. I mean, Snapchat's pretty widespread. Same with Zillow. If you're looking for a house, oh, great, prices are.
I have to give a shout out to Meep Sheep and GNAA and Wikipedia vandals. Well done, guys. Like they're changing Manhattan to inside job. That's A class. 5-star. Would troll again. Thumbs up.
It's crazy though that like now that we have these sort of, you know, there's so much automation, and there's so many pipelines that would take this information and just blast it out to everybody. It's not just like one single site defacement. It's like if you can hit certain things, you're going to get whatever defacement you have pushed to everybody, like everybody's phone.
Someone's going to deface it, like the service is going to deface it for you.
Yeah,
like that's so much of like what we've just been talking about like the last couple of weeks. It's just like all these like supply chain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just so ubiquitous that everyone uses like trusts that some information source is, going to do the right thing and have their information secured in this way and that way. And that's almost never the case, as we see.
I think a lot of companies, though, they want to offload risk. And in this case, risk was offloaded, in getting the maps wrong being the risk, that, having incorrect data. So they offloaded it to a third party where they thought that would be safe. And in fact, it increased the risk. So take that, threat modelers.
It's a violation of integrity right there.
So next thing we have on here, pretty interesting in the story of how Russia is trying to just block anything that's encrypted. So Russia is now basically trying to roll out some deep packet inspection stuff to block Telegram, because blocking any AWS or Google Cloud IPs just ends up blocking like so many services that they didn't expect.
I love the photo where that they're all throwing the paper airplanes into the air. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting to see when governments try to do this sort of control, and then they just end up doing something that's just so obviously now shady. It's not even just like I don't know. I feel like it just really blows. I don't know what you'd actually do to mitigate any of this sort of stuff.
This is why no one tried to really block Bitcoin, right? Cryptos in general, because they're just going to show the fact that they can't really do anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are you can block. I think China put in some efforts to block certain coins and their propagation, but it's only they're only really targeting your low end user who is using the default port. They've followed the guide. The guide says use this TCP port, and the traffic is fairly obvious.
You say that, but I get blocked doing all kinds of tricky stuff when I'm in China, and they watch and they deep packet inspect, and it's not just me trying to connect to like commercial VPN providers. It's me connected to my own shit at home, and it works for a little while, and then it stops working, and it's null routed by China. So it's totally possible. If they really want to get involved, they totally can, but they just don't. Like you were saying, they go for the low hanging.
Yeah, exactly. So that low hanging mums and dads, if they block 99.9% of users and then they don't block Faith for 15 minutes, I mean, that's like an acceptable kind of,
Yeah, I mean, you have to talk about how much it costs to do these things, right? Versus how much they really get out of it.
Well, if they can make an example of someone, that's worth a lot.
Yeah. That's exactly. And the same thing is true with, we've seen it with BitTorrents. And when we moved to like Pirate Bay, then we moved to trackerless torrents. And at that point, couldn't really go after the individuals or even people in the middle of it. It was like a too distributed at that point. There wasn't really one person you could point the finger at.
Without naming any other services that haven't been targeted yet that are quite old since since SMTP old. There's still services where DMCA takedowns are sent out to providers who are hosting data, and they remove part of the file, and then the same takedown notice gets sent to the other providers on the same service, and then collaboratively, everyone's hosting maybe 45% of the file, but there's enough 45% to make up the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that still flies under the radar quite well. Let's not name names. We'll talk out of school.
So the next thing that we have on our list here is pretty interesting. It was the sensitive data exposure via Wi-Fi broadcasts in Android OS, or CVE 2018-9489. So what this thing is the, I guess, system broadcasts by Android OS expose information about the user's device to all applications running on the device. So like anything that you would broadcast when you're connecting to Wi-Fi is available to apps. And so it's just some of the information is no longer available via APIs. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely weird. You can say basically like your MAC address, your local IP, like what Wi-Fi stuff is all going on.
It's kind of ironic that they make moves to protect this information from leaking to other apps on the same device when it's leaking out by the radio to the entire world.
Yeah, but I mean that's one thing. I mean, hold on. Sorry, let's go grab something. Yeah, no, it's one thing if you're gonna do your local, I guess. I mean, yeah, you still have to be able to trust, I guess, some of the radio waves that are around you. But I mean, if you have some sort of weird spyware, which we'll get into some more spyware stuff later, but yeah, I mean, it'd be able to just say like what Wi-Fi you're on, and some remote app would be able to tell where you are, I guess, by that.
Yeah. And this kind of telemetrics information, this belongs to Google. Only Google should be allowed to collect and search and store this kind of information.
I think
not some third-party developer.
If we look at like gateway IP and DNS, like these, are pretty sensitive due to like, man in the middle 101, let's up poison some shit. Like, oh, now we know what to up poison because that's the gateway, lol. And you probably have access to. I mean, I don't really know on Android, but potentially the local up table yourself to add and remove entries, like
Yeah. No, just
obviously some kind of like it says in the article, correlating with like Wiggle or some other MAC address database, map database thing, that local apps can now they can get the kind of information that Google has, like Google Maps has, where that device has traveled, what stores you've been to, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
kind of correlate that based on remembered access point broadcast names.
Yeah, defeating the MAC address randomization is pretty bad too.
Yeah, I think as well it's funny, like if you're on so a plane is a good place to have a look at this, but you'll notice because when everyone, planes that don't have Wi-Fi, I should clarify, nobody's connected to Wi-Fi, but a lot of people don't put their device in airplane mode, and you see all kinds of like SSID probes being sent out, and it's like, oh, so if you were to correlate, there are maps that you can correlate that stuff against. So
it's pretty easy to figure out who people are and where they work just based on their iPhone spitting out their name.
Oh, hey, you guys noticed that when I was flying out to Vegas, my device would, like I'm connected to the network, but I don't want to pay the $15 an hour. And every like hour, 45 minutes, my device would actually break through for a second. I would get Twitter notifications. Anyone else ever seen that?
Yeah, I've seen similar stuff on like hotels.
Yeah,
for some reason.
For sure. I remember when I was flying, for whatever reason, whatever plane I was on, they would allow you to access some Google services. So you could like you could read like AMP page, like read news from like the fucking like AMP sites. Yeah. Or you like I could message people on like the weird Google Messenger thing.
Don't know if I'm revealing someone's like elite 0-day here, but I know a lot of people that DNS tunnel out through in-flight internet, and just so they can get on IRC, and it works fine.
I think Whitey Cracker actually put that in a song.
Yep.
All right, so
it's not.
So I guess it's not 0-day.
Yeah, IP over DNS. There's There's a really neat thing you can help you do it on GitHub. I forget what it's called though.
Yeah, there's a tool that's part of Kali, and it's part of Black Arch and stuff as well. But there is a service that provides it on the internet already. So if you don't have your own DNS tunneling box set up, just Google. It's like the first Google hit for DNS tunneling.
It's like dnstunnel.de. Is that it?
Yeah, so something like that.
Something like that. And DNS cat, like it's netcat, but DNS tunnels, and then you use like afraid.org or dnstunnels.de, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
You gotta set it up before you get on the. You gotta have all this set up before you get on the plane. Otherwise,
Yeah.
But it's
you
funny
can do
because they're
ICMP
like,
tunneling. You can just clone your neighbor's MAC address and use their paid stuff. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do.
yeah, that's a little more evil, but yeah, you totally can do that.
I'm just talking theory here.
I mean, with the MAC address stuff though, you definitely want to like just before you're about to have a nap or something on the plane, if it's a long flight, start the deauth there. And no, I would never do that.
Do they let you take those deauth sandals on planes? Did you see that video with the deauth sandals? You stomp around and it sends deauth packets. Do they get through TSA?
Pretty amazing.
You haven't seen that, MG? Have you seen these? The deauth sandals.
Is that the one that Sexy Cyborg did or something?
I think so.
Nice.
Yeah, just
excellent.
Just some basic gladiator sandal-looking things, nondescript-looking. But when you stamp, it sends out broadcast Wi-Fi deauth packets. I wonder if they get through TSA. You'd probably get in trouble if you tried to take those through TSA and they showed up.
If you have electronics in your shoes, you are going to jail.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, it's probably an issue. I've had no issue bringing Raspberry Pis on with gigantic antennas. That's never been an issue for me.
What about like sneakers that have got like lights in them and like LED displays and stuff like?
They have things for that, but you're gonna have a hard time explaining sandals that don't have lights on them but have antennas and a single-board computer in them. But before we get any sort of a TSA called on us, let's go to the next story here. I'm getting kind of worried. We
can go deeper.
We could definitely go a lot deeper, tunnel way deep into this subject, but I just don't want to offend anybody. So we're just playing Fortnite, guys, if you were listening. The next thing that we have on the list here is this Magneto Core malware that's apparently like affecting those Magneto payment gateways that broker to like PayPal and other payment services. It's like basically like a skimmer online that has been found in over 7,000 different stores that host like e-commerce sites that have Magneto.
Magento, sorry.
Oh yeah, Magento. Sorry, I keep calling it Magneto.
Magneto is way cooler though.
Yeah, no, I literally like I love it. I'm thinking of a Magneto also as far as like pulling that what's it called? Data into you like a magnet. I don't know.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going way too far into it. So no, it's pretty cool. But it sucks at the same time because this is like very widespread.
I think this comes back to what we were talking about earlier with Composer. That PHP sucks. Stop running PHP apps. Yeah. Go use Shopify.
Yeah.
Go pay Shopify, and if they get hacked, you're probably not their biggest store. So.
Yeah, it reminds me of that when Pornhub like initially offered a bug bounty like years ago. They're like, oh yeah, if you could get RCE on our servers, you get like $100,000 or whatever. And this was before all the bug bounty programs were really a thing. And someone just discovered like a PHP ODate, like an ODate in PHP, and used it to claim the bounty. I was like, well, like that's one way to do that. Yeah.
It's good when you do that by accident, but to actually set out like, okay, I don't have any vulnerabilities in this shitty CMS, so I'm going to audit the entire stack. Very rarely do pen testers get that kind of scope. Like I only get like 3 or 4 days. I can't find a kernel 0 day in 3 or 4 days in order to own some shitty CMS. So
definitely though, like Magento is in the same realm as WordPress, as Laravel, as whatever. Like it's the Magento core might be great, but developers always want to install these stupid plugins and write their own code. And just because they can install Magento doesn't mean they know how to write code or understand what it does. Like copying and pasting from Stack Overflow is still a thing.
Of course it is.
This wouldn't be a big deal if credit cards had some sort of 2FA on them. Just throwing it out there. This is an American problem.
Funnily enough, I did work on a project for that. Lol. So there is MasterCard actually put out a card that has a rolling CVV2. I don't know if it's available now. And I think Visa might have been Visa, I can't remember, did a rolling pan where the center six digits roll over time, so that like over a 30-second window, so it makes your card like an OTP that still adheres to one. But I don't know how. I don't know. I've never seen one of these cards in real life. I've just seen them on the internet and showcases and shit like that. So
yeah. I actually wrote the time here. It's gonna move on here. So yeah, this the next story we have is another spyware firm, another family spyware firm, has called Family Orbit, exposed 281 gigabytes of kids' data and photos.
It's family spyware. It's wholesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's for the kids, literally. Apparently they had 38 or 3,836 containers on rack space containing all this data. And then somebody just guessed the password and got into it, and yeah.
281 gig of children's photos. I can't think of any underground criminal sickos that would want access to that at all.
Right?
That's terrifying. Like, where is that going to lead? Like,
yeah. I mean, who knows if anybody's actively targeting it for that purpose too, which is also fucked up because a lot of these companies are just pushing out some app. They're just trying to make it so their parents can feel safe, and then they're inadvertently just rooting their kids and allowing having some backdoor access to them, which is just messed up.
Yeah.
One of the other things though is the container aspect. Like, I'm sure from this company's perspective, they're like, oh no, it's safe. It's in a container.
Yeah.
Users are separated. They're in a container. It's like, well, obviously they got access to the host. Maybe they used a container breakout. Maybe they just access the host directly. Either way, all containers, not security.
Password container 1, container 2, container 3.
Yeah, and like Docker apps that are just like, oh, it runs in Docker, but it's root, so it's still using, still got the same access to the kernel syscalls as everyone else does as root. So
yeah. Also in that same vein, there's a Krebs article of MSpy, which does much the same thing. Got popped for the second time in 3 years.
Wait, really? Oh, that was in there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just very much the same. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen so many of these sort of companies get owned like constantly, whether it be like the real shady ones or the ones that are somewhat okay, but they're still kind of shady too. No matter who, they just get owned.
The sort of people that get some hacking skills and then start thinking, how can we profit from this based off people's fears and insecurities from normal people? That's how you get these like spyware firms that are basically like in the private investigator kind of scummy world, but they use hacking now.
Oh, you mean like some sort of
how you get
forensic
hacking team as well? Yeah, absolutely. Don't name names, please. We don't want to get sued. But yeah, they are bottom feeding kind of people, and they get some hacking skills, and then they think, how can we monetize this based on the world that we come from? And so that's why you get these creepy spouse tracking, child tracking, and then at the other end of it, you get like hacking team and like small shitty defense contractor wannabe kind of companies in third world countries selling spyware tools to dictators.
Because you can get the same sort of functionality out of just Google turning on location services with an agreement. Tell your kids, hey, I'm gonna know where you are all the time, and we're gonna use this legit service.
Yeah, that's for legit people who don't have anything to hide. But if you want to spy on like your de facto's stepson or something because you know that she's not doing something in accordance with that kind of world, where it's you want to keep track of like your ex-wife's daughter or whatever for whatever creepy reason. There's a huge market out there for these people.
That's terribly creepy.
The same people that buy GPS tracking devices, right, to put in people's cars. You can totally buy those, but we know that, hey, we could just do that with a phone. Like, why would we buy a device? Well, because they want to surreptitiously install it in someone's phone and be a creep about it.
Yeah.
Those GPS trackers have a back end that is wide open as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Every one of those devices ends up getting popped. It's hilarious. I encourage it. Like, we should continuously be popping these guys because they are snakes and they are feeding off like, vulnerable.
I mean, if we were of that mentality and we were like, okay, we know we can do it with a phone, so that you could stick a phone in someone's tire well and the battery's going to last for X amount of time. But or we could buy one from the internet and you could stick it in the same place, or there's enough skills in here to build one that is way tinier that lasts for weeks and go and hide it, and then we could make it en masse and sell it. But then that would make us these snaky assholes, the exact people that we're talking about. So
yeah,
absolutely,
just kind of roll your own spyware.
I mean, how cool is it to like? Oh, I ordered a couple of things from Alibaba and I sticky taped them together and stuck them to your car, and now I can track you. Yeah, well done, WizKid. That just makes you a creep. Yeah, owned, tracked. No, it just makes you a creep.
Yeah, for sure. I think the real problem here is that these spyware services aren't on a blockchain of some kind.
Need more machine learning, actually.
Machine learning blockchain spyware.
I need some immutable distributed spyware, please.
Yeah, I want all my kids' pictures to be immutable and also spyware. So yeah, the next story we have on our list here is interesting. Is on ZDNet. It was about when basically somebody using WMIC for their malware campaign, and it just kind of goes into. I wanted to share it mainly because it's interesting to point out people who might not know about like LOL BAS, like living off the land binaries and scripts, basically just using tools that are already on, say, Windows to do stuff that you wouldn't normally do with it. But you can.
You see that little trick someone posted earlier about how you can run batch commands or DOS commands from within FTP on Windows and doesn't get picked up by intrusion detection or endpoint security.
Yeah.
So you can run like regserver32.exe with a JavaScript payload from ftp.exe, and it never actually touches cmd.exe, so antivirus bypassed.
Yep.
That's kind of like on the VeryXX subsystem in OpenBSD. So like where you have you can only execute binaries that have a hash associated. So in Junos, for example, you could just write a shell script, and that's okay because the shell's executing it and the shell's allowed to.
That's might as well whitelist bash at that point. What's the point, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Just like don't have malicious binaries. Just get real good at bash.
So we've seen. I can't name any customers or people affected by this, but I have seen the same living off the land, Visual Basic tricks with WMIX in particular. The same group of people from a eastern country seem to be doing this a lot lately, and we've seen some pretty widespread and really effective ownages using this technique. Which, from my point of view, I'm like, yeah, that's really basic. Do that in Metasploit for the last 7 years, but yeah, it bypasses AV and it's working. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely something to look out for, and if people don't know about how this actually works, I mean, it's pretty cool. So I would read that article, and I would also read. I linked the actual repo, which has a pretty good explanation to what the living off the land binary stuff is, because it's definitely useful, especially if you're doing any CTF or OSCP stuff too. It's much easier to use like certutil.exe to download your script rather than trying to write a wget script in like Visual Basic and then make it work like that, or just pasting stuff into the terminal because you can't.
I think at this point we should just like get a list of every executable on every version of Windows and just fuzz them, just like pass a URL to every single one of them and see if they open and run.
Pass them up to.
Oh wow, the blah blah.exe that apparently doesn't have any command line options. Yeah, it takes like an XLST template file and you can put JavaScript in it. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine so. Who knows? The next story we have here, real quick, is this is interesting. The CamuBot banking malware. It's been targeting some Brazilian banks. pretty interesting way of attacking people. It's a hybrid of phishing, vishing, and also installing a malicious driver for like your auth, like your YubiKey or whatever. I don't even know what actual thing is targeted. It doesn't say in here. But yeah, it's they basically it's saying that they're trying to like they're trying to like do something with their biometric auth, and they need to install remote access to their USB device, and they're able to then I don't even know.
Also, I saw a talk about some Brazilian bank hacking a couple of months ago. Local guy, shout out to Icom, TSS, and Jay. But he is a Brazilian dude who was showing some techniques they're using, and I was just surprised to see the workflow of logging into a Brazilian bank where they download an app to their machine anyway, and they have this software installed to do their net banking, and that was the beginning of his attack vectors. So that was like pretty crazy.
Yeah. No,
like you like most people, I'm sure, like from Australia or I guess from the States as well. You go to a browser, you don't have to install all this shit to get into your bank account.
Yeah. Yeah. The next thing that we have here, I thought was interesting too, is a little story that actually not Dan shared. This was something he would talk about it too. Is that the private sector is just not sharing data with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's threat portal. So, I mean, it's basically saying that there's only 6 non-federal organizations that have used it to share any threat intelligence with the government. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's interesting that there's 6. But yeah, what do you guys think? They're basically not sharing anything about.
We have the same problem here in Australia as well, and it's at the point where behind the scenes, a lot of the feds are saying, "Well, they're on their own. We know that they're owned. They won't talk to us about it. They're on their own. They won't give us information. They won't give us threat intel. We won't give them threat intel. It goes both ways."
Yeah.
That's a bit
I
scary.
think there's a point where
clever.
I just don't think there's a need to always share information with the government. Like, it depends what information. Like, there's a lot of different factors that are going to play into this. Why they don't. If it's straight up threat intel, like your Cisco routers are all owned because you run owned firmware. You idiots! Like, listen to CERT. Like, that's probably a good thing. But when it comes to sharing data back into the government, I mean, that's always a scary concept. So
yeah, no, I feel like it's hard for people to want to do that. I mean, especially
in the past, we have these private, public-private partnership sort of intermediary businesses like SANS and ISC and Shadow Server and HoneyNet and all these other private volunteer projects that try to bridge that gap. And it seems some of them have fallen away in the last few years. Like a lot of the security knights of the internet, I guess you would call them, for lack of a better term, these working groups that put in volunteer time to monitor botnets and take them down.
Yeah,
it seems to have fallen away a bit. Maybe too much corporate got involved. Too many corporate threat intel guys came along and kind of muscled their way in.
I think some of those projects had sort of that good mix between the two sides as well. Guys who may or may not work for someone, and guys who work in the public, work for the private sector. Without, it was kind of like a don't ask, don't tell, I guess, for a lot of it. Just we're here all just working on a project.
Even back to the like spam house, like the DNS and spam blocking days. It was a mix. It was a mix of the major ISPs who were dealing with the most spam, government agencies that were also quite worried about it. And it was just a good mix. It was all the big boys of the internet would come together and say, okay, none of us like spam except, Bryce, that guy over there. He likes spam. But the rest of us, we can work together and and cut out like 80% of this nonsense. It's just noise. It's costing us all money. Let's just get rid of it. But we don't seem to have that cooperation anymore. I don't know why. I think it's just money. I think money got involved. And altruism, money trumped altruism, I guess. It always does.
Whew. So the next thing that we have on here, which I'm not sure. I feel like it might be blown out of proportion, but it also could be completely true. From the Daily Mail, I couldn't find much or many other sources about this, so I take this with a grain of salt. But it says that Saudi Arabia declares that people that post satire on social media can be jailed for up to 5 years. Basically, anybody who posts anything that is deemed satire or harmful to the country itself is could be charged under like terroristic crimes.
Is there any citation? This sounds ridiculous.
No,
Yeah.
it's Daily Mail only, and that's all you need to know, really.
I saw it on a few different websites.
It's on BBC.
Yeah, I'd seen it a couple different places, but I wasn't sure exactly where it. I don't know. I'm not sure what. I remember any sort of government mandates from Saudi Arabia before, so I don't know where I look for those
This
specifically.
doesn't surprise me, and sometimes it gets lost in translation. Like if the same sort of story came out about China, and they had a rule that said anyone inciting disruption of public order will be investigated. The average Chinese person will go, yeah, okay, that's good. Then the government needs to keep track of these people that are disrupting my business. And it seems ominous when it's translated into English.
Yeah.
In these cultures, they don't see it that way, and there's something lost in translation. However, I absolutely, it wouldn't surprise me if they did come out with something as ham-fisted as this. Like if you're not allowed to say anything negative about the Crown Prince or his family on the internet ever, forever.
Or make a
They
joke.
do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tin pot dictatorships that have got only a few years left do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, it's real scary. So the last thing we had before we have Georgia come on here, we just found out about this like a little bit ago, so I didn't put it in the show notes. But do you want to talk a little bit about the Mega Chrome extension, please?
Yeah, that's I posted a link in the chat before, and Dan posted it on Twitter. It was only like an hour or two ago that it was posted to Reddit. So it seems that Mega.nz, Kim.com's baby, they got an official Chrome extension. I don't know what it does. I guess it makes it easy to upload and download stuff to your Mega account.
They like use it to incentivize you downloading stuff. They say, "Oh, it'll be faster if you download with our Mega extension."
He's probably got a cryptocurrency attached to it or coming out into. Well, not anymore because Kim.com is about to wake up to some very awful news that his application in the Play Store was found to be stealing credentials and especially going after crypto private keys and exchange credentials. And it managed to get into the Play Store, and we haven't got any information on how many people were affected or installed it or whatever, or how this happened. Was it an inside job? Did Kimball himself get popped? Did he write it? We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know because I mean, there's also people have owned like other not dependencies or things that the other extensions are built on, and it might have gotten pushed that too. So
my first thought was, hey, this looks like it could be related to some domain fronting, like stale domain stuff. Maybe someone took over a repository somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the Chrome store, though, you basically pay $5 to be a Chrome developer, and then you're like, oh, yeah, Chrome extension up. Like I've done it to write some stuff, and
this was already an existing extension though, and now like a recent version was found to be backdoored. Now they released another version.
But the way that you update it is like you basically just drag your CRX file or whatever it is into the browser, and do you want to publish this? Yeah, all right. And then everybody gets a notification to update.
So you think someone could have like SE'd their way into like development rights to push out an update to this extension?
Yeah, it's basically just your Chrome developer account or accounts if you're an organization. Like there's not a whole lot to it other than getting access.
You have to be added as like the maintainer to that particular application in the Play Store, though, right? To be able to push out.
But there's a group. I'm pretty sure there's a group that you can be added. Like, say if you have a Google Google organization, I'm sure more than one account can push to the Chrome store.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if we were to make Kim.com a project, I think by the end of the week we could all be developers on his internal team. Probably getting invited to his house. I think he's not that hard to compromise. And looks like
hey,
somebody's.
Kim, if you're listening, KiwiCon's coming up. Invite us around for drinks. We'll see you there, buddy.
Yeah, see you there, bro. If you're allowed to leave your house, which I don't think you are, but yeah.
No, that's why we're going around to his place, because he can't leave.
All right. Mega party.
Alrighty. So yeah, that's it for the news for the week. Pretty pretty awesome stuff we got going on here. But yeah, I'd actually like to invite Georgia to speak. Hi.
Hi.
Hi there. Yeah, 1 second. I'm trying to level these out real quick. But hi, thanks for joining us, Georgia.
Me, I just got back from Denmark, so it's usually not so bad with Europe because, you go to bed early, wake up early, but then you realize you scheduled a podcast for 10:30 at night. So if I sound tired, I am tired, but I will try and keep my usual level of enthusiasm.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Regardless, it's an honor to have you on here. So yeah, so what were you doing over in Denmark?
Just teaching a class on pen testing, and I went to go see Hamlet's castle and all that on my free day.
That's really cool. Yeah. That's awesome. So, yeah, we got some, I guess, questions to just go through real quick, and then kind of open it up to some people who are in the chat who want to ask you some questions because you have some fans. So yeah, I guess we'll start off with like the basic stuff, like who are you and what first caught you into computers and hacking?
Well, I am the perhaps not so infamous writer of Penetration Testing, a hands-on introduction to hacking. And I'm the founder of a startup called Shavira, which everybody says is a stupid name. It literally means pen testing in Hebrew, because it's the destruction that makes way for harmonious creation. So I guess I should not be a branding expert, but I do come up with clever names. I'll give it that. I also have a consulting business called Bulb Security that's been around for a little longer than Shavira. Products at Bulb, we do, pen testing and training, and that's where my book revenue goes and all that. The typical pass-through LLC deal.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, those are, I guess, the big things about me and how I first got into computers. I actually posted a picture that, like, my mom sent me my, like, baby scrapbook, and she was actually getting her PhD. My mom, like, took a little time off from work, to have me, and, got her PhD in computer science at the time. As one does, I guess, when one is having a child, one gets a PhD in computer science. And so there's like a picture of me, long before I could walk without falling down or, form coherent sentences, playing on the computer. I remember playing a lot of DOS games. We're very into educational games, and I swear the reason I don't play the piano today is they hooked the piano up to the computer, and the metronome was so good it could tell if I was off at all, and I just hated the damn thing. Yeah, thank you, computer, for making me not a musician. But that's how I first got into computers.
Do you ever play the game Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Of course. Yeah,
I was
totally
thinking about that the other day. That game taught me how to brute force, because I didn't know the answers to the questions, but there was only like 4 answers for all the questions. So eventually I played the game enough that I could brute force the whole game. Like I knew every possible answer.
Right.
Through sheer force.
Yeah.
It was a good game.
Yeah, definitely. I hadn't thought about that game in a long time. But yeah, we had all like the Reader Rabbits and Secret Solvers and all those like educational games.
Math Blaster. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it was definitely like computers always. I don't remember like a ton of computers in the house. I think, my first picture of me playing on the computer, but I think my first sentient memory was, my mom getting her PhD, with the cap and gown. So, computers have always been a big part of my life.
That's awesome. That's really cool that you grew up with it too. That's something that a lot of people don't get to do. So it's awesome to see that you actually did with that exposure. So yeah,
I think they wanted, well, at least my mom, me to be, I think, a hacker. Like, she bought me some books on it, but at the time, when I was really young, it was, the moral of the story was like the person always ended up in jail. So it was like, maybe not. So it wasn't until, I discovered, the ethical hacking route that I thought maybe that might be a better idea.
Yeah. So growing up with all this, how did you get started actually pen testing?
I went to college early when I was 14 and graduated at 18. I had a math degree, so my mom was computer science, my dad was a physicist. In the typical, teenage give the finger to your parents kind of thing. I, wanted to be neither. So I did math, which I guess was halfway in between, but I guess, and I even did 1 year of like PhD in math kind of thing, but I guess I realized I wasn't Einstein somewhere along the road. Like, okay, I'm like 18 and I have no work experience whatsoever. Like McDonald's won't hire me because they'd rather like, take a 16-year-old who's like, a high school student. So I went to grad school in computer science, like on a whim, in a like security like department, and joined the cyber defense club. They always tell me not to say this, but it's late. But like the captain of the cyber defense club was like mega hot, and I kind of wanted to get his attention. He's married to the same girl he was with back then, so like obviously that didn't work out for me, but we did the collegiate.
Come on.
Yeah, you miss every shot you don't take.
Michael Scott
did the like collegiate cyber defense competition, the Mid Atlantic Division, which is put on by Cyberwatch, and I mean it was a really like. Let me just break it down that the whole point was to make the students cry and vomit. We played like security team of an organization that's actively under attack, but the red team, and I've played on the red team since, and they were, pen testers who were, volunteering their time to kind of get the chance to go, no holds barred, which, you typically don't get to do, and kept breaking into my machine and putting up this message box, and I didn't know enough about like how the Windows API or like remote access tools, or I think he used Nuclear Rat or one of the older ones, or even Poison Ivy. I mean, I'm dating myself here, but putting up this message box that said I like turtles, and I just wanted to know how he did it. How he kept doing this. So by the end of the competition, after I got over like, the hell of what was, 48 hours of, trying to keep a network up that was under active attack, I realized I wanted to be just like them when I grew up.
That's awesome.
Shouts out to CCDC.
That's really cool though, that you kind of came at it from a different angle though, because you came at it, I guess, from more of the like math and just like logical side. It seems like, rather than the like destructive, like anarchist side. Although it might have been this both. That's a really interesting path though into this whole realm. That I feel like is something that a lot of people. I mean, I'm certainly horrible at math, so really, it's hard for me to understand that aspect of both programming and logic.
Yeah, theoretically, I should really get like hardcore into crypto after I finish my second book. I mean, especially with blockchain being so big right now. Like, everybody tells me that all the time because I do have the math background, but long time and I haven't used it that I doubt I remember any of the math, but I'm sure I could pick it back up, you know.
You just
to be honest, like there is a secret to blockchain math, and that is just write math that nobody else understands, and you will get investors, guaranteed.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have just go.
Just keep adding numbers. Like the longer the number, the more money they give you.
As someone who has pursued venture capital, I take offense to the truth of that statement.
That's really awesome, though. So now, having gone through this stage, and you're, college, doing the competition, doing red team and stuff, what led you to actually start writing your book? Because your book is something that I recommend to so many people who ask about penetration testing. It's like the trifecta of like that one, the Web Application Hacker's Handbook, and then Hacking the Art of Exploitation are like some of the books that I feel are always passed around or recommended in a lot of different circles. And so it's one of those things. It's like there are people try to do guides, people try to make blog posts, people make like Medium posts and Tumblr or whatever. But yours is a very, very in-depth that spells out not just a single aspect of it, but just the entire, I guess, scope, the whole continuum of knowledge that is pen testing, that is the jump-off point for a lot of other stuff. And I'm really interested in just knowing how you actually, wanted to get into writing that book, and also like what the process is actually like.
Well, actually, the publisher wrote me and asked me if I was interested in writing a book and to be a novelist. So I guess I actually wrote a novel, during my, I guess, ShmooCon days when I was slaving away at a desk at the government. I actually wrote a novel in my time off, but, agents and publishers and things don't write you back. But, it turns out, No Starch Press was looking for authors and actually reached out to me. And a lot of people made was I was going to write a mobile security book, but I had at that point recently gone through the OSCP security certified professional, and I really didn't feel like I got as much out of it as I should have. I mean, I passed the test and all, but I know a lot of people in the community, I didn't really have the resources that perhaps there are today. So I didn't get all the boxes in the lab, and the answer was, if you asked a question, which I get it now as a business owner, because that means they don't have to pay people to help you. So it totally makes sense as a business person, but as someone trying to learn, as the theory of, how people learn, it really kind of sucks. So I wanted, I guess, to write the book that I had wished I'd had when I was getting into pen testing. I certainly had no idea of, the kind of success it would have. And I am working on the second edition very diligently as we speak. And, it was, I guess, 2014 when it came out. So, a lot has changed in terms of, what we're able to do with online labs and, things like that. So, I mean, I want it to be, not just a book, not just, you do your labs and you're done, but really a of experience, that people can, continue to work through it once they're done with the book, not necessarily to compete with OSCP per se, but just, to or fully interactive experience, because you're able to do that a lot easier now than you were in 2014.
Are you completely rewriting the book? Is this a completely new book, or is it like an update?
It's kind of a mixture of both. I mean, it is going to be edition 2, but it's going to be different enough that people who liked edition 1, I think, will be happy to spend the money to buy Edition 2. I mean, it's definitely, I mean, all the targets are different, all the exploits are different. But I mean, the idea of it being, fundamentals same.
What was your experience like working with No Starch Press? Because I love them so much as a publisher.
We all love No Starch Press.
Yeah. So, like, are there any like neat?
Here's the thing. At the time when I would get back chapters that were like covered in red marks, naturally I hated it, and it was I think writing any book cult, and it was absolutely a very like soul destroying experience at the time of the editing process, but it ultimately made it so much of a better book. And whereas a lot of the other publishers are a lot more hands off and just kind of like put out whatever you throw on the page, Starch is very hands on. You are like very thoroughly edited in several rounds, and I mean that does make them take longer to come out, which then when people were like trolling me about how old it was, it's like, dude, you don't know how long we've been in the editing process. But yeah, I mean, I think they're a really great publisher. They don't put out stuff that isn't good. It had to be good before we were going to get it out. And I mean, if I looked at some of like the earliest drafts, they weren't nearly as good as what we finally came up with.
Did they provide like technical editors, or do you have to come up with that stuff yourself? Someone to make sure that this exploit works in this situation.
I mean, with the technical editors, they do ask you if you can find anybody, or you have someone you're interested in working with. Like the first pass, like the completeness edit. God, I hope I'm not like giving away their trade secrets right now. But like,
no.
This edit, like they do the copy edit and the layout edit. They do, but yeah, obviously they don't have someone on staff who's in penetration testing and all the other, like maybe the Legos. I hope someone's an expert in the Legos at No Starch. It seems the kind of place where someone would be, and they put out a lot of Lego books for those who don't get the joke. I mean, they help you find the technical editor, certainly, but if you have somebody in mind, they're to work with that.
So then what is the actual process like to compile this information? Like, what were some of the challenges that you faced when you did this? Because this is a lot of info that you have in your book. Like it's like it covers so many different things that I was thinking about it, like how would I ever arrange this information? And I really don't know. Like, how did you go through picking like what sort of vulnerable services you wanted to highlight and demonstrate, and like what sort of techniques you wanted to put in there? Like, what was that sort of process like?
Well, I really wanted to do like everything I had ever seen on pen tests ever, because then the book would be too big, and pages wise, to print it costs X number of dollars or whatever. So we actually ended up cutting some things out that hopefully will make Edition 2. Like, there was originally supposed to be a reverse engineering chapter, for instance, which I'm into Edition 2, but I kind of like grouped it into the categories of the kinds of things that I see a lot on pen testing. Like, it may not be a single thing, but you've got your weak passwords, your missing patches, your misconfigured services, your like somebody's repo got busted and somebody added some nasty gram code to it, and if you send it special characters, it spawns a shell, and the general stuff that I see a lot, like kind of just broken into categories.
Yeah. So no, I mean, it's definitely just a lot to cover, and it's cool that you're able to then plan a second edition for it, because there's a lot of stuff in there that I'd be like, I wouldn't know how to pare this down.
So frightening, I guess, about the second edition is it's like, now all your tools are called like Death Star and Darth Vader and stuff, and I'm just like, what? I still use Metasploit, man.
Yeah, people there's a lot of new tools and random things that are gonna be interesting to cover too. Like, what about like autopone and stuff like that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's different. It's difficult.
The Casper security testing framework. You're going to cover the Casper DDoS tool in your new book. It's very important.
Yeah, LOIC.
Put it on my list.
Just search YouTube for DDoS on any given day and pick like videos uploaded in the last 24 hours, and you'll find the latest and greatest zero-day tools in the world doing.
Oh yeah, Tupacalypse now. I guess I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your company. So you have both Bulb Security for your consulting, and then how do you pronounce the other one?
Nobody can. Don't worry about it. It's Shavira.
Okay,
so at Shavira, we make products for mobility and the Internet of Things. So we do actually a suite of products. So we do, phishing, and we do penetration testing, and we actually work with, a product that still doesn't have a name, oddly enough, since they love to make up random names, but product yet has no name, that it's testing the of preventative technologies, which is not just needed in mobility by any means, but we put a band-aid on this mobile thing, very quickly with, mobile device management, which became management, which became mobile application management, which now they're calling it mobile threat defense. Gartner for $6,000 or so will put you on their magic quadrant to say you're an awesome tool that's gonna save the world. In my experience, and anybody's experience, working in pen testing, I mean, all you have to do to get around antivirus and all those things is just drop something in PowerShell, right? Well, I mean, it's kind of the same sort of deal in mobile, except a little bit worse. Oh, we have, I guess the code name for it is Who Watches the Watchmen, but there will be a name for that tool at some point. But I mean, people get trained around, say, email phishing, but they don't get trained, don't scan the QR code in the break room that says it'll give you a discount on the next time you go to the restaurant in your building downstairs if you install the app that looks a lot like their app. And even on iOS, because it has a developer certificate, don't really seem to care who they give them to.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting aspect to build that sort of company around. So I guess one of the questions that I wanted to ask you specifically, because you've actually done this, how did you transition from being like a pen tester to an actual business owner, entrepreneur? 'Cause it's something that I feel like a lot of engineer types are puzzled about, because I don't know, most of the time are just making stuff because it works, and they don't understand the concept of actually selling yourself and marketing and working with a team.
I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, I was probably the worst specimen to be picked possibly ever. I went through an accelerator called Mach 37, which is in Northern Virginia. And, they said there was a pool of 60 candidates. So I had to think, how much worse could the other ones possibly be? Because, yeah, I very much the practitioner, I mean, I could give talks. I mean, I'm not badging myself, but I mean, there's a really big transition from being a practitioner, or even, having your one person consulting company where you go and do pen tests, usually as actor, because you don't know how to sell anything anyway at that point. And then, all of a sudden be in a position where, you suddenly have to be able to manage people and make sales and speak VC and explain what you're doing in like 90 seconds and, all this stuff. And, I mean, it's been, but at the same time, I think as a practitioner, pretty much from the get-go, I spent a little time, like I said, at the government desk, basically watching YouTube. They hire 7 people to do the job of a half a person. So what else are we going to do with our time? This is why I don't have a security clearance, so I can say stuff like this. But yeah. So, I mean, I was always looking at it as a practitioner and always looking at it as a security person, that security is the most important thing. And now being a business owner, it's made me really understand, even on the consulting side, so much better that, even as a security company myself, it's between making payroll or, getting the latest version that a customer that's or paying or whatever, as an early stage startup, I mean, security's the last thing on your mind, man. Even as a security startup, I mean, send this thing out with SQL injection in it and fix it later. And which really makes me understand my customers so much better, because I mean, it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, you just want to stay alive in the early stages, especially.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's like, I feel like it's easy to badmouth a lot of like lazy devs and things like that, but sometimes it's just like you have only so many hours in the day, so many people that are working on a project, and sometimes it sucks. So you're just like, wow, I know there's a bone here, so hopefully someone doesn't hit it. Like,
no one notices before I can fix it, kind of thing. Like, it's the truth, and it's made me a person to work with, within my consulting practice, like I said, because came at it like security was so important and you guys are so freaking stupid for not caring about security and not fixing this. But now I don't know if compassion is the right word, but I just, I have so much more of an understanding of like where they're coming from. I mean, security is just a line item in the budget to a company. It's not, I mean, aside from people, like us who do this, like, it's not anything to anybody. I mean, like my dad, who's a physicist, really smart guy. I mean, when I was doing like multivariable calculus and quantum mechanics and was kind of getting in over my head, like he bought me a fax machine and would like fax me the answers to my homework like 2 seconds later. Like, super smart guy, like uses Windows XP, and I have never seen so many like add-ons to a browser. But he won't put the printer on the network because he's afraid it might get hacked. Like, I mean, this is what we're dealing with here. I mean, these are really smart people, and we security people tend to like point it and laugh at them and be like, "You're really stupid," but it's in fact failing because we can't make like really smart people understand these actually not very complicated concepts.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely the whole "there's only so many hours in the day" thing is that's an argument I always make as well against prioritize, like for prioritization. Like, we only have, if you work 9 to 5, you only have, that many hours in the day, and then, however long you take for lunch is taken out of that, and then you've got your attackers who have 20 people who work for 23 hours a day on meth in Russia. And that's who you're defending against, so yeah, it'd be nice if the developers could spend all their time fixing SQL injection, but they also have work to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, as a startup person, 9 to 5 is not sick, but still at the end of the day, you eventually have to sleep. So, yeah,
So,
run out of time eventually.
Georgia, what are some of the biggest challenges you had starting your own company? Like, what was hard about it? What did you have to overcome?
Have to overcome. I mean, learning how to speak, like through an accelerator, and the for every week it was kind of like we would do our startup pitches and program. We were down to like 7 minutes, and I get on the stage the first week and start giving a security talk like I'm at DEF CON about like my research, which is the venture capitalists go to sleep at that point. Let's be serious. So I mean, having to make that transition to be able to explain what I'm doing, and I've still not perfected it, believe me. I mean, I talk to venture capitalists all the time, and I have like an hour-long conversation with them, and then they're like, what is it you do again? And I'm like, okay, I've really not gotten this elevator speech thing down quite yet. Really just making that transition to it's I mean, they're looking for different things. Like, it was almost like I had to throw all my laurels out the window and make a name for myself again. Like, they didn't care that I'd written a book. They didn't care that a contract. I came into the first day of my accelerator with my like DARPA Cyber Fast Track medal around my neck. Nobody cared.
Yeah,
So it was
talk
really,
about the
yeah.
DARPA Cyber Fast Track thing for a little bit, because that no longer exists, and I'm kind of wondering like how it worked out for you, and if there's a similar thing these days, for people who are up and coming.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that DARPA Cyber Fast Track does not exist anymore because, for those who don't know, government contracting, yes, is very like lucrative. The SBIR, which something something. I have advisors to tell me what acronyms mean. But people who get most government grants, while they're very lucrative, they have people on staff full time whose whole job and is to know how to get those grants and to write those grant proposals. Cyber Fast Track was not like that. I mean, it's not like I didn't spend my whole Christmas vacation working on the thing, but we're talking more like 15 pages about why I thought my research was important, as opposed to a bunch of government speak and 100 and 150 pages. So plus the turnaround time, I think from the time I turned the thing in to the time I like had the grant was like 4 weeks, which was by government standards. I mean, they say you can live and die waiting for your like government. And now as a startup who, I mean, obviously, the government is fairly interested in mobility and IoT security, but still, yeah, you really can live and die waiting for the all the right paperwork to come through. Cyber Fast Track was totally not like that, and it totally, my experience was it totally made my career, and we're grateful. And yeah, I totally like have my challenge coin made into a necklace that um you might see me at con with it on. Great experience for me. It allowed me to it started Bulb, a first company that, I mean, it wasn't supposed to turn out that way. Most people who got Cyber Fast Track grants like stayed at their companies. I just so happened to, be at a company that was kind of rigid and was like, well, you kind of have three choices. You can like give the grant to us, leave, and I chose leave. Which so the grant kind of gave me, I guess, the seed money, if you will, to start my own consulting, which again at that point I had no idea like how to get like clients or anything like that, but the grant money gave me that opportunity to figure that stuff out, if you will.
That's cool though. That's really awesome. The last question that I had for you, I guess, about your company was, are you hiring anybody? Because we have people that are always listening that are looking for jobs, and just wondering, putting that out there.
I would love to be hiring. I'm currently not. Wanted to work for free. And even still, it's very much, early stage startup / consulting company right now. We're capacity, but here's the thing. I will tell you this. See it on a massive scale, the Ron Goulas and all thems of the world who made a lot of money. I'll give you all jobs to go just do the research you want to do. Everybody who's into hacking, you can go work in my think tank and make money and work on your exploits or your whatever project you want to work on, and well in the world of hacking. So I will absolutely give you all jobs.
Hell yeah. So I kind of wanted to ask you some pen testing specific questions, I guess, as a practitioner and as somebody who is now like a knowledge source that people go to for information and advice. So specifically, I wanted to know how you feel that the field has sort of changed since you started, because you had said that before you'd written your book, that you wanted a book like yours to exist for taking like the OSCP or doing other pen testing engagements. So like how would you say that the field of hacking and pen testing and infosec has changed since you got involved?
Well, I think it's a lot more popular, which is why I imagine why they want a second edition and why my royalty statements are getting bigger, not smaller, as the book gets older, which is kind of baffling. But I guess hacking is cool now, so with like all the TV shows and whatnot and all the news media that we're getting about breaches, that more people are getting into ethical hacking. So I mean, naturally, we're seeing an influx of people writing new tools. Like I said, like I mean, people write me and they're like, how do you use this like Death Star thing in your practice? And I'm like, the what's a now? No offense to the person who wrote the tool that it probably is called Death Star, but like, I feel like, I mean, that's with writing the second book is just getting up to date on like the latest and greatest things are, because all the stuff I've been doing is still working. I'm just using different tools maybe. So
yeah,
I mean, or stuff that I wrote myself, but I mean, I certainly don't want to readers with a stone unturned. I definitely, I mean, especially with a book like this that is kind of a survey, I want to make sure I kind of touch on everything that people are using.
Yeah. No, and it's definitely, there's so many people now that are able, because we have things like Twitch and YouTube, and the things that we're actually utilizing right now are the reasons why I feel like it's gotten a lot more ubiquitous too, is because of the ease of access. Like you don't have to connect to some weird sketchy IRC server and some to get access to some other FTP server to get your zines and your wares. It's more like you can go on YouTube and search how to hack Facebook, and then you'll eventually get to the right path, I think.
Right, and definitely. I think somebody said that to me like on Twitter not too long ago, that like my OSCP experience versus like OSCP experience today is somewhat different, because people they do have a lot more resources help than I had when they just had like the IRC server that like had a bot that said try harder. That I mean, I'm not kidding, and it really, made me want to break the monitor because it's not like a liberal arts college. So, I know a little bit about like the theory of how the brain learns, and that's not it.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, as a business owner, I totally get it now. They don't have to pay support people. They're working on their bottom line. Totally awesome for them, but there are a lot more options now in terms of like, going to YouTube or tutorials out there, or there being, hackable boxes, out on the internet. I mean, we have, legal hackable boxes. I mean, there's always been hackable boxes, but like boxes out on the internet that were set up to be hacked that, we didn't necessarily have back then, that I mean, I'm having to take into account now in order to make, because I certainly want to make Edition 2, not twice as good as the first one, but, gazillion times better than the first one. So, definitely count everything else that people have available to make it, all that much more relevant.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome that you're considering that though, and seeing that, because it's definitely like I could imagine at that time of having to do something like taking the OSCP or whatever, and not having ever played with like SL mail exploit that you have in there, and before you have a chance to actually go and exploit that on the exam or something, like being able to like go through that, understand like what, and being exposed to more services, which I guess it makes you more well-rounded. But yeah, I definitely, yeah, I just dig all of the stuff that you've compiled.
Well, the thing I remember the most about it was like I couldn't figure out why my like return address was backwards, because like they didn't explain Indianness, and I didn't know Indianness. Like the word Indianness to me at that point, I think it's like, some crude term from either someone from India or a Native American. The idea that it started with an E and had to do with like, what bytes CPUs put in what order, like, was completely foreign to me.
Yeah.
But now you can just Google that.
Yeah. No, definitely. So yeah, now we're talking about the new generation of people that are coming into this. What are some of the common misconceptions people have about pen testing as a practice, you would say?
Well, again, we get into the kind of stuff that I've been told I'm not supposed to talk about, but I'll do the one that's not dirty. You know where it's going with the dirty one. I don't have to fill it in. But a fair number of people seem to think that I'm like a quality assurance tester for like Mont Blanc. Bad job, I guess. But I think, a lot of that I'm like a bad guy hacker, people who aren't in the industry, which, until not too long ago, when I entered the business world, I didn't know very many people who were outside of the industry. But I mean, I get a fair amount of people who think that, like, my night job is selling exploits on the dark web. Which,
yeah, can you help me hack my girlfriend's Facebook, please?
I get that like all the time. Like, yeah, like hack my girlfriend's Facebook, or teach me how to hack kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, I wrote a book about that. Go buy it. Be glad to help you with that. Be glad to help you with that, but not with the girlfriend's Facebook bit, because that's bad. But
she's running a WAMP server or some other vulnerable server. But yeah, no, that's definitely a huge thing that I see a lot of people talking about recently. Is just everyone's kind of been like, yo, everyone who has anything to do with hacking just gets bombarded with those kind of questions, more so now than ever.
Definitely, and I mean it makes it difficult because it makes me miss like legitimate inquiries of people who are like getting stuck with something in the book, or have a business inquiry. Like, whatever made people think they should send business inquiries on Facebook Messenger, I will never know, but they do, and they get missed. And I really wish there was like a, can we filter out everyone who is asking me to hack their like ex's Facebook, please? Because I made a New Year's resolution once that I was going to answer like all my messages on social media, because I get a ton of like, unsolicited messages and whatnot, as one does. And I always feel like such a jerk for not answering them. But then it was like January 4th, and I realized that I had was spending, like 15 hours a day just talking to random people on the internet. And, if work is going to get done, make some balance here. So to all the people I don't answer, it's not that I'm a jerk, it's that I'm trying to like get my work done.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like it's yeah, I see people who spend a lot of time on Twitter. I don't know how they get their security research supposedly done. But yeah. So now we're talking about, I guess, people asking questions about how to hack. What are some of the most commonly overlooked skills that people who want to get into pen testing need to know about? Because I feel like I see this a lot with people who take like exams or whatever. They say, "Oh, I didn't know about like X or whatever." Like they didn't hit some point, I guess. Or what are some of the biggest pain points for people who are trying to learn, as far as things that they just might completely overlook because they're not exposed to, like Indianness, for example?
Yeah. I think that I get a lot of people who, and I actually put up a repo today that has like all the vulnerable software and all the ISOs and everything from the first book, because I've gotten so many people like basically cussing me out because my 4-year-old book is out of date. You try and write a textbook. But I think what's really overlooked is pulling back in on myself with the try harder bit. But you're not necessarily going to run into the same vulnerability as you may have learned in your training, but a little bit of critical thinking and perhaps some googling, and you realize it's kind of the same class of vulnerability. And just because it doesn't work straight off like exploit database in your lab doesn't mean that you won't be able to figure it out with some time and effort. And I think there's going back to the influx of people who just hack my girlfriend's Facebook. I need a bot that says figure out how to do it yourself. Really, I want to help people as much as possible, but at the end of the day, so much is changing. There's new technology every day. I guess to try until it works is what's, I think, overlooked the most. So many people want the easy win, and the easy wins happen. And you always want to throw rocks at the people who I fuzzed it for like an hour, and then the default password for root in the iPhone was like Alpine, and still is, thank you. And it's like, really, you got famous for that? I get it, I do, but a lot of it is writing a book. It's like perseverance and hours, and a lot of it is not fun, it's not sexy, but takes.
Yeah, people make jokes a bit about like what hacking is actually like. It's more of like basically like resolving a bunch of dependencies, trying to download a bunch of libraries and get something to work once. Sitting there waiting for.
Is that?
Yeah. No, that's definitely interesting though. Is the whole, like, I guess, the work ethic behind it. It's the mindset. It's not like something that you can just be given. It's not just like a tool. Like, there are tools that you can use. You can download lore, but Ion Cannon and start DDoSing your friend's Minecraft server. But I mean, the actual work that goes into using that to do something more interesting is something that you actually have to really, I feel like, obsess over. But yeah.
Hey, so we have a question on Twitch.
Oh yeah.
From Pentester Lab. Hi, Pentester Lab. If anyone doesn't know pentesterlab.com.
And they make good shirts.
Oh yeah, I love that shirt. Such a nice shirt.
What would you do differently if you were to rewrite your book? So I guess what is the key thing that you'll change this time around?
Well, I don't know that I want to give up my trade secrets to somebody called pentesterlab.com who's probably gonna be a competitor with me when it comes out. I think that should tell you enough.
That's fair.
So,
that's fair.
Throwing some elite Odes into your book, I guess, is what you would do differently.
Here's the thing about all that. I mean, absolutely, I love. It's probably my first love, reverse engineering and exploitation. But I mean, I'm an absolute believer in responsible disclosure. I mean, throwing Odes, they hit everybody. What exactly have you proven to the Enterprise in that case? I mean, I'm a pen tester at heart. I don't find using Odes on engagements. I mean, I know there's groups I can't name because of legal reasons who like to throw mobile exploits against, political dissidents, she says with, air quotes. But definitely, I mean, it should be what we're after here. We should be after making a more secure world. I don't believe in hoarding 0 days. I don't believe in using 0 days on engagements. I think, we should all be trying to make, software more secure, and the internet is a secure place to live possible. But I mean, there will definitely be online labs in my new book as far as I'll go with answering that particular question.
So you'll be a competitor to Pentester Lab. They already that's what they have is online labs actually. So
kind of where I was going with. I don't want to give away too much. Yeah, I guess that would make me a competitor, so to speak.
I mean, there's a lot of services, but I feel like what's interesting though, what needs to always be the case, because there are bottlenecks in certain things, like say there's only one type of OSCP type of thing, and if you fail that one thing and you can't get it, or you get banned for whatever reason, that's it. There's not really many other practical ways to do stuff. Now we fortunately have a lot of different services like Hack the Box, VulnHub, and there's a lot of resources and tools, and I feel like the fact that we have so many is really awesome. It needs to be diverse because there are so many different perspectives and there's so many different styles of learning, and I feel like it's really valuable to have a ton of different people from a ton of different backgrounds just building this kind of stuff. So I encourage that.
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
Yeah. I was gonna say I like the whole 0 day in the book thing. I think was a reference to The Art of Software Security, Mark Dowd and John McDonald. And they there was a bug in there that they described. They published the bug to for informational purposes, but I think it might have been 6 years before anybody noticed. It was some time before it came out.
It happens, man. People are busy.
So yeah, I guess now we're starting to get towards the end here. We kind of talked about. All right. Do you have any other advice for any young people who might be listening to this, for getting into this sort of field? Yeah.
My main advice would be, go the ethical way. I mean, very young and, Google, there wasn't even Google then. I don't even know. I asked Jeeves how to hack or whatever, and, didn't go down that path. But I mean, really today, there's no excuse. There's so much information available. There's so many, options available for ethical hacking, not just my book. So, I mean, definitely, stay on the straight and narrow advice. And, two, I mean, follow your passions. I know, like, at least, I was the kind of kid that was stuffed in lockers, so to speak. Hence why I went to college early, just to get away from those people who bullied me incessantly. But it's kind of like, what is it? The Felicia Day's show that she did, the Thugcrowd. She did like a show, like, now I'm the one that's cool, and so it's cool to be like into software or hacking or what have you. But I mean, follow your passions. I mean, if this really isn't something you're passionate about, like, don't be like
absolutely
forced into it just because it's cool. Right now, the bubble burst once before, for young people who aren't old enough to remember the bubble bursting. I like have some vague memory of it, like people losing their jobs, but when the bubble burst the first time. So it's totally possible that, if you're getting into this for money, you could be, at the wrong place in the wrong time. So definitely, follow your passion, whatever it is. If it's not this, find something that is.
That's true. That's really solid advice. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of kids that want to get into this kind of stuff, go to school for it, then realize they're just not, they don't have the sort of mindset, I guess, a curious mindset that is required. Not just a hardcore technical and book smart, but like the kind of person who actually goes in and presses all the buttons. Like, I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely awesome advice, and I thank you very much for coming on and sharing your wisdom here.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope some of it was coherent. Like I said, I'm still on European time, so it may have been completely incoherent, but I tried.
Well, thanks very much. Yeah, it's 11:30 now, so we're gonna get off here. But thanks everybody for coming on. And hold on, actually, 1 second. Shoot. Yeah, I've been putting up a bunch of links. If you don't see it in the chat, or it's in the window on the stream, about go to weekendhack.in. That is the information for our 24-hour CTF marathon that we are doing. So please, everybody who wants to participate, take a slot and let us know, so you can get in on the fun. And also shout outs to our Patreon supporters: Harmony, Mel Cookies, Rob Honers, and Sterling Mallory Archer. So we'll see you guys next week with a show on virtual DFIR. Something pretty cool. So thanks, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Shut up and get a lawyer.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.